All right. Good morning, I guess, and welcome to week 8. As you see, I have a bit of a new setup, or I'm in a new room, but I think everything works. So let me know if there's something wrong with the sound or anything else. I should also have a better Wi-Fi connection here. Okay. So this week. I will talk about the trim textures. So you guys have wait, I'm live, right? Am I live? Can someone stream? Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Everything was still at 0 and I saw no chat. Okay. So I'm live. All right. So this week, trim textures. So you're either a GGP student and you've been creating props with normal maps in GAP, Game Asset Pipeline, or you're a GD student and then you haven't done it yet, but still you've probably heard about the process. So the idea is that we can have small scale detail that is not modeled in a normal map, that we take from a high poly model and then bake this onto a low poly model. However, either you've realized it as a GGP student, or you already know this as a GC student, but this takes a lot of time. If we were to do every, like all the props, all the meshes that you've already used in your scene like that, if we were to detail them like that, we would certainly not be finished by the end of the semester. And also, it wouldn't be a very interesting process in the sense that, it would basically be doing the same thing over and over. And that's basically what GAP is focusing at. Instead, what we will do is that we will try to, well, we won't try. I mean, we will actually do it. We will avoid creating high poly, low poly meshes and baking, at least per model. We can do it to create panels, but that's something I'll show later. But we won't do it per model. We also try to avoid sort of creating a new material and a new texture for every asset individually. So if you're just creating your one, I don't know, your one weapon or your one object for a course in DAE, it seems fine. But if you imagine a game where you have hundreds of different weapons, hundreds of different characters, you will see that a lot of things are just coming back. And if you were to create everything as unique textures, you'd basically remake the same sort of information over and over again. So let's say it's a sci-fi game and you have weapons, and those weapons have like a few different materials. So they have just bare metal parts. They have these sort of, I don't know, more painted or hard plastic parts. They have maybe some rubber parts. Those kind of examples. Or the characters, they have cloth. They have cloth in different colors. They have metal belts. They have or clips on the belts. They have the leather of the belts. But still, if you have that in 100 characters, you see the same sort of data coming back over and over for all the little metal clips, for all the belts, for all the cloth, etc., etc., etc. So what happens in a lot of those games is that instead of creating one texture for one one asset is that we create material layers, so that we create a layer of cloth, we create a layer of leather, we create a layer of metal, we create a layer of rubber, those kind of things, and then we can reuse them over those hundreds of props, those same layers, and we can actually do this in the shader in Unreal real time. Now in a few more recent years, we have of course the texturing tool, the new texturing tools from Substance, which also apply the same principle. But basically, if you're using the same smart material over and over and over and over and over again, and always saving this in the same sort of texture files, again, you can see it's the same data all the time. So it's maybe better to just have this data just once as layers, and then localize it. Wait, I see some Fs. Okay, then localize it with textures on every object. So instead of having those sort of high detailed all that data for every prop, we can just have it once and then use textures to localize the scratches on the hundreds of different weapons. And maybe it's even 1,000 different weapons. Maybe it's like combination, etc. So it can be very it can be a lot of data that can be saved that way. And the interesting thing is, if you do it in a shader, is that we can do it a bit in a dynamic way. So we can localize stuff, we can create scratches in a dynamic way, we can create dirt in a dynamic way. So if we put two objects together in an environment using the ambient occlusion that results from that, we can use that ambient occlusion, for example, to have some dirt in the texture at that position, right? So we can do some smart tricks in that way. But the main trick that I want to talk about today is basically using the trim texture. So that's a way to avoid having to recreate lots of detail for lots of different props, but just reuse the same detail. So what you're used to either from the first year, I know in the first year you used a bit of trim textures too, but generally in the first year we create a model as a model. You unwrap it, you create the unwrap, the UVs, and then you put a texture onto those UVs, and then it works fine. But we actually want to switch this around. So we still create the model as a model. But then instead of unwrapping it just like that and then needing detail on that space, we have a texture ready and we just slap the parts of the unwrap onto that texture to have the detail on that model that we need. You will lose a little bit of control by using this method, but it will go way faster than using baked textures, etc. In game art and in the first year in 3D low poly, sometimes, or some of you did it as well, but this is also what we will do in game art. So an example here of a game that does it is, there's plenty of other examples of games that do it, but one example is Mass Effect, which you probably heard about. So a typical sci-fi setting with panels, which works ideal for this. So this is their texture set that they can use for a lot of their props. Not for everything, they have some unique stuff as well, and that's also possible. It's not because you use this technique that there's no other, like that you're locked to this and that you can't use the sort of traditional linear workflow, but it is very useful for a lot of things. So here they have their old diffuse maps, and then these are I think the specular map and So here they do add in the scratches and the little things and so on, but they just reuse these panels, these bits, these details over and over and over and over again, which is the main thing of a trim texture. So if you created your environment, or at least parts of your environment, as these sort of sci-fi panels, then yeah, you can probably just slap those panels and these details onto them. And the fact that those details will come back isn't actually that wrong. It kind of looks normal, and it looks like it's supposed to be that way. So it is like the player automatically accepts it. So yeah, here they didn't really split it into layers, right? They always have the same scratch at the same place, but it's also an older technique, an older game as well. So yeah, these are or a bunch of their modular props. Actually, this is not the Zest Foundation, but these are a bunch of other trim textures used in other projects. So the one at the bottom here is used in the Zest Foundation from Thiago Klavke. I already mentioned this in a previous stream some time ago. And then this one here, the one at the top right and the one at the top left, are from Torfrik. This one is from a tutorial, so he creates an entire environment using this trim texture. The tutorial is in UDK, so in the previous version of Unreal, but feel free to watch it and to use those techniques. You just have to, the materials are a little bit different in Unreal, of course, but it's easily transferable. And this texture here is from Torfrik, from his, used to be at least famous one texture level, where he textured an entire level using just this texture set. And then this is from another environment, which actually I'm not going to show, but yeah, basically more trim texture. So basically, different panels that you can reuse. All right, so this is that Zest Foundation. So these are the modular assets. So as you can see, he works with quite large modular assets onto a sort of large grid, right? So this floor piece here, this floor piece is like his sort of grid size, and then the wall pieces sort of snap to that grid size, and so it's quite restricted if you use those large pieces, but once you get it going, it's pretty quick to create large environments. But since I only asked you to do 2 rooms, it's probably easier to split these things up into smaller pieces and to use them a bit more flexible. But yeah, it's the same principle. So basically, he uses this texture and this texture for floors and walls. So this is for the walls here, and then this is for the floor mainly. And then for all the sort of smaller details, he uses these bits. So here, this, I guess roster vent, you can see it coming back here. You can see it coming back here. You can see it coming back here in the ceiling. You can see it coming back here. So in different sizes, etc. And that's a good example. There's also an article. Basically a tutorial how he did this. I will show you. I will show it to you as well later on, and that you can read and follow as well if you want. All right, so this is Torfrik's one texture level. So basically everything was made by one texture, we're using one texture, but you still see like quite a wide array of different things. Now he did basically split up his textures into some different layers, etc., to have some extra some extra details. But a lot of the details that you see that are in the normal maps are reused over and over. So again, let's say these here at the door at the back, you see these little dots. I think if you look closely, you can see it coming back. Yeah, here and here and here and here, etc. and here on this this machine, forgot the name. So you can see things coming back, and it makes sense in those sort of panel sci-fi environments for those details to come back and to be reused. But let's have a bit of a closer look. So here, this chair, which is already a very complex prop. You don't need to go, I mean, yeah, maybe some of you have a prop this complex, but a lot of you will also, most of the props will be a lot simpler than this chair. But this chair, for example, you can see these bends right here, these bends, just use enough segments for this, right? So you don't necessarily need to try to do this, like very low poly, and then bake that bend onto a higher, bake that bend into a normal map to make it smooth. You're better off just using a few more segments, a few more polygons. It's not even that much, but a few more polygons to just use a smoothing group and that effect to smooth it out. So basically just these round edges, or here at the floor, just these round edges as well. They just with 4 edges, they look nice and round and detailed, or especially shapes like this use enough edges. So basically don't model them too low poly, and even possibly here these kind of things, they are modeled or they have an extra chamfer just to make them a bit round. But then all the little parts, all the sort of edges are reused. So we saw that texture previously, right? It was like this one here. Oh yeah, okay, I rotated it. But basically this is the important bit. This is kind of like, he has some extra decals, etc., that he hides in an extra layer and then an extra mask and so on. But you can basically ignore those. It's about this. And then he also has like just a sort of a grunge panel, but a grunge texture. But basically it's about these two. So the details that are in the normal map, and he also has an ambient occlusion for those details. That's fine, Watts, if you've never worked with normal maps. It's not that complex, but we'll get to it. I'm also going to show you how to make normal maps if you want to make your own. But that's for later. Let's first even if you just think about the details as they are in the ambient occlusion. So this is how the unwrap looks. It looks maybe, it's so messy and so on, but that really doesn't matter. So he basically just split up his model into all these different strips, and then just laid them out onto all these details, so that you have a bit of detail that sort of makes sense everywhere on all those strips. That's basically the idea. So of course way faster than if you were to first high poly model this chair and put all the details in there and then bake all those details, but you also save a ton of data as textures. So these are his more normal props, which are maybe a bit more relatable to you guys. So as you can see, there's like some small details here. So this sort of I think like a little indent with a little bolt, and then this longer strip, and this again, like you can see it coming back a lot at the edges. So here as well at this edge strip, here as well, here as well, here on the bottom, here at the top. So those sort of things you can use to add a bit of extra detail to localize it. And if you want bends like this or here, just model them using enough edges, or enough numbers in your chamfer, right? So don't worry about having a bit more polygons. Yes, Dennis. You make the meshes fit the texture and not the other way around. Yeah. Or you just make the meshes as they are and then you try to find some little details that fit onto them. What you also have to remember is that these are not like hero props. They're not like a weapon that you're holding very close to you and that you will be maybe looking in your UI and like, oh yeah, I have this new weapon and so on. No, these are, or almost all of them, are just props that will sort of go together and that should sort of meld together into becoming an environment. And as a player, you just start to see the environment. I think a lot of you already last week, but hopefully this week even more, you already had nice environments just using the placeholder assets, which didn't even have those chamfers, etc., and just using lighting and so on. So it's really just layers upon layers, and where, yeah, lighting works, the architecture works, but eventually the having those details are just one of those layers, and they do add something, of course. You do sort of want to have it in there, but they don't necessarily need to be perfect or yeah, very controlled, as they are maybe when you have a hero prop that you see up close and that's very important and that needs to be, yeah, unique, etc. Then you can do the traditional gap workflow, of course. So yeah, this trim texture, but it's a bit complex. Like, he also has some leaves here, and he has to like do some tricks with his UVs if he wants like an empty space, etc. Sometimes he needs to cut up his model quite a bit, but basically we can make it a bit simpler. So for our material, we basically want to combine layers. So here I just put some pictures to visualize it. So a layer of metal, a layer of paint, a layer of rust, a layer of dirt. It's really up to you what your environment needs. If you have a very clean environment, then maybe you just have like very, very subtle dirt. So like very subtle, but still in there, still affecting the reflection, etc. a little bit. So it's not like CG perfect clean, but yeah, more natural clean. And then maybe you just have, yeah, parts that are metal and then parts that are painted, but you don't really have scratches or something, or just a few imperfections in the paint. Or maybe you have a very grungy level and you use lots of rust and lots of dirt, etc. It's really kind of up to you what you want to do. But basically you're gonna have these as yeah, tileable layers, just layers that you can, yeah, apply that material onto everything, and then basically combine this with details either from, yeah, normal panels or from the trim texture panel in the normal map. So I will show you how to bake the normal maps easily for the GD people, but for everyone else that already knows how to make them, you can make them any way you like. You can use any software that you prefer, but I will also put up a guide and hopefully a video as well, where I show you how to make them with the tools that you already know and have, or maybe with XNormal, since it's pretty quick and pretty easy to use. But it's not gonna be yeah, that hard. If you pass the first year, you can easily make a normal map for a panel at least. All right, so this is the trim layout that I will provide to you, or this is the trim texture that I will provide to you, but you can definitely make your own, and I hope you make your own. But if you make your own trim texture, I suppose you kind of stick to a little bit of this, these elements. This is kind of what you will need. So you want to have some empty space as well. So some sort of empty, larger space as well. If you don't want too much detail at an area, you want to have that. You want to have some like irregular shapes and some more complex detail as well to put here and there, but you only need a little bit of it. And possibly also you need some unique parts as well that don't really fit into a tiling panel. And then this middle section here, yes, of course, you can use this and make your own, of course, or you can use this one and alter it. You can do anything you want, basically. But Yeah, all right. So some empty space, some irregular stuff, some unique stuff, or at least a little area that you reserve for some unique stuff as you need it. But then these will be quite useful. So these sort of sizes will be quite useful, and a lot of models will sort of have areas that will be unwrapped onto these sizes. And then you also want to have like some smaller strips as well with some more busy detail, maybe like you see here. But I mean, it doesn't need to follow this perfectly, and replace it with your own detail, like personalize it a little bit, of course. All right, so a question maybe right now: do textures not have to be 1 by 1? Actually not. Textures can be 2 by 1, like you see here, 4 by 1, etc. But this creates a little problem. When you're unwrapping, you have to use the correct setting, and you basically still unwrap from 0, 0 to 1, 1. But then you squash the unwrap, and then as you apply the texture is also sort of squashed into this, which makes it normal again, and which makes the pixel ratio on the actual model still just normal 1 by 1 again. But of course, you can combine it with some normal panels for walls, for floors. And don't make those too busy. If you do make them, don't make them too busy. Like you want to avoid, I think everybody, you want to avoid this sort of look of a bathroom, or like of a swimming room. Not a swimming room, like where you go to swim. Like and where you change or something, where it's like just tiles on the floors, tiles on the walls. Like you want to avoid that a bit. So be careful with that. All right, and then here there's a more modern example by pool. Exactly. The area of the pool where you like change or something indoors, where it's just tiles everywhere. Like you want to avoid that. Maybe then you're better off just using the layer of the paint or whatever on the floor, or maybe have like a little bit of strips or something. All right, so this is an example by Gary Doe. He also used the texture, the trim texture technique, but he did more than just using the trim texture technique. What he did basically is also model quite, how should I say? Expressive models, like models with lots of shape, and I think that's also a good thing to do, to not keep your models like too square and so on, but actually just model these round shapes sometimes into them, and then for little strips, he still used the trim texture here. So this looks really good, right? Super detailed. You think this definitely is uniquely baked. But it's not. So these are his trim textures, multiple. Like he used 4 different ones. Basically, these are the small thin strips of detail that he has. He has them in one texture. Then these are a bit more empty ones and a bit bigger ones. Then these are the chaotic ones, which I say you don't need them that much. Maybe some of you don't need this sort of area at all. And then these are his unique things, his unique details. So he split it up into 4 different textures. I think it's easier if you just have it in one texture, then you also have it in one material, etc. It's a bit less, like you will have less different material instances. You probably will already have a bunch of different material instances, with like different colors, etc. as well. But then basically this is his model. So as you can see, this is maybe higher polygons than you might have seen in the first year, but this is perfectly fine for any graphics card you can find in any computer or laptop today. So this is absolutely no problem as a sort of density. And yeah, so just use like some more edges to make these shapes nice and round, etc. And these are his, like, this is like a large piece that he uses for those windows where you see lots of detail, and of course he copies this. But these are his more modular set of pieces. So his door, his pillars, and then for the floor, he actually uses little parts to sort of put in there. So you can also perfectly do that, like this piece here, like a trim on the edge, so that you can sort of create these shapes. So if you have, I guess this is the corner with like the rounded, the rounded 90-degree corner, and then this is a straight piece. So you can like copy this piece to create long pieces, and then use this in the corners. So you can definitely do this as well, and yeah, then you don't have to actually texture this. So this is another environment where he uses this one texture as a trim texture. So there he doesn't really have like an empty space. He has like the unique stuff here, like the chaotic stuff here, and then the small stuff here. But then yeah, I think his empty stuff is just like doesn't then have any detail. But then these are his set of props for that. That's like just a hallway. I was also going to show that Zest Foundation by Thiago Klafke, and I also have this, but I'm gonna actually show them just in the browser. Yeah, let's first. So Thiago Klafke, he's an artist that works in Blizzard now, but he used to be, like, before he worked at Blizzard, he was very active in, let's say, the community, back when, I guess, learning 3D was still an online community thing, and wasn't as much in schools, etc., and not as professionalized. So he used to be very active in that community. So I learned a lot from him. He has his premium tutorials on Gumroad. The one with the office, I bought that one a few years ago when it came out, and the important bits are included into this course. But again, if you want to have a tutorial for this course, I guess if you follow his tutorial, that one, you will probably make a good environment. And then these are his legacy tutorials. So in his legacy tutorial, you will find here creating modular environments, which, I already had it open, which is about the Zest Foundation. So I will show it again. So the Zest Foundation, this is the level that I think is realistically reachable for you guys in terms of, let's say, amount of detail, etc. Of course, we will have better lighting and better reflections and better material, etc., because this was still in an old engine in UDK. So we can already sort of have a more high-end look, but with this level of models and this level of texturing detail, I think that's actually realistic. And I know a lot of artists especially, but also developers surpass this already. But still, I think quite an interesting article to read and to basically to follow. How he plans it out, how he applies his texture here, the different parts, etc., how he does it. And then this is about his material, which is of course a bit obsolete now. But then let's see how to make the round things. This is how he baked it, and then the Q&A is also actually quite interesting. So if you follow this guide, basically you'll also get there. So this is his ArtStation, his more with his more recent work, mostly on Overwatch, for Blizzard, but yeah, also StarCraft in the past, etc. And then his these modular environments back I think before he was at Blizzard. I'm not sure if he will show his individual assets. No, not really. All right, so that's Est Foundation guide. Have a look at that. And then this is pretty interesting as well. So we can sort of go beyond just reusing the texture. There's also this talk. Let's see. Yeah, no, that doesn't really work. About the ultimate trim. So this was a GDC talk, which is on the GDC Vault, and it's open. So basically, they had to create the entire environment of Sunset Overdrive with just a small team of artists, so a big city. And they decided to use the ultimate trim texture for that. So basically, they use the trim texture, but always use the same layout, also for different textures, let me put it that way. And they also use a special technique with a 45-degree normal bevel to combine corners. You don't have to do this, but I'm just showing it because I think it's super interesting. You could do it, but maybe it's already a bit too maybe it's not fully worth it for level editing. You can get away without using it, and it's going to be a bit simpler. So basically, this was their layout. Oh, come on. Yeah, it's small. They use it for if they had brick texture, for paint texture, then unique stuff that could be for wood texture. And then they had their normal maps. And the normal maps, basically on all the corners, these are the colors or the values for 45-degree angles. And if you have, you often have lots of 90-degree angles in your model, which you kind of want to avoid because it looks fake, those perfect 90-degree angles. And if you apply two 45-degree bevels on both sides of the corner, it actually matches up quite well. Like, not always perfect if you look super hard in detail, but in an environment you won't notice it. So here they basically smoothed out all those corners without having any extra detail. They could have this building, and then just because they use the same layout, they can just switch it to have it as wood as well. And of course they had like unique part, not unique part. They had like modular parts, etc. as well. So they did this a lot, but they created a script to easier to unwrap those their edges onto those 45-degree angles a little bit easier. So basically, when you're unwrapping, you want to be able to sort of just slap it on your unwrap, slap it on the trim texture. Not too careful. Maybe here and there you have to be careful, but in a lot of places you can just just put it on, and it's pretty easy and pretty quick. But here, with this technique, it needs to match perfectly. So they created a script to snap their unwrap to those values, so that it is like this. However, they came onto a few problems where sometimes it's like here on the edge, right? Like it doesn't, like you don't know if you're gonna get to the corner, so they simply made an extra cut, and then they can move it there as well. Or if you have these sort of areas, then it would be squashed here, so that wouldn't work. Or here you see the stretching, so instead what they do is they add an extra line in there, and then separately put that onto their normal map. Instead of having all these sort of sharp edge, like this tells the viewer that it's a low poly model. Well, yeah, if you have normal maps at those areas, then and even more complex props like these benches, etc., they did as well. And then something relatively interesting as well, they use these procedural brush strokes for their hand painted look. Yeah, but I will also show you like how to do some procedural dirt at the end as well, a little bit similar. With yeah, the video doesn't work here in the PDF, but yeah, yeah, I'll have a guide that sort of shows a similar yeah, technique than this. All right, then I get to yet another technique which sort of extends the trim texture ID. Oh no, yeah. First, this is Gary Doe's portfolio on ArtStation here. Yeah, I showed it. So these are, yeah, his textures as well. So he does localize sort of his little grungy details in the texture. But basically, yeah, these sort of material layers, that's what you need. So the next one here, yeah, this name, Alex Seneschal, Jens already shared a tutorial from him, common sci-fi mistakes. So that was more of a design tutorial. He also calls himself a concept designer to create these sort of yeah, sci-fi props. They're all very high end, I think. Maybe so comparing like the sort of details on this thing to the Zest Foundation, you can see what I mean. Yeah, you can see that this is, I guess, nearly 10 years-ish old now. And this is much more modern. But it's basically, yeah, more detail. But he here created a pretty cool tutorial. So basically this is also done with a trim texture. But he has all these sort of complex irregular shapes, like they probably wouldn't fit on the trim texture, but basically what he did was he made lots more cuts into his model to apply little details here and there onto specific parts of his trim texture, and then had a second unwrap to apply the layers. So that's like a sort of an advanced version of what we can do. But again, yeah, if you go this much into detail, it of course will take longer. Still way quicker than making the high poly and the low poly. Yeah, see, like this is the block out and this is finished. Basically, it's, yeah, it's adding like some small detail bits here and there. It's still much quicker than doing the high poly and low poly and all the baking process, etc. Even if you include the smart stuff from Substance. It's still quicker, but maybe it's a bit too high for level for your level. But a game that does something very similar is Star Citizen. So Star Citizen, yeah, here I had this example from someone on Polycount who used the same technique. So basically, this door is this model. So so all these sort of soft edges are actually modeled, and then all those small details here that you see, and like even these yeah, these things, all those small details, they're actually just yeah, kind of details, or known as floaters, on top of this. And yeah, that's also interesting, but again, it's a technique that does take, I think, considerably more time. It does like give you more and more control, but I think like what Torfrik did with his one texture level, and just sort of accept that not every detail makes perfect sense, etc., is probably the way to go. And it's probably a bit easier, and for most of the props will be perfectly fine. Right, so this is like the normal map of all the little details, and let's see his texture. Not sure if that's interesting. But that's basically a technique used in Star Citizen. Something else that they use is face-weighted normals. And wait, let's hide this first here. So yeah, if we think about normals on models, then there's a few tricks we can do that I'd like to show you. Wait, let's give them a bit of a lighter color. All right, so if we just leave them like this, they're yeah, it looks very low poly, right? A different smoothing group on every edge. We see those perfectly sharp edges. Yeah, it looks a bit fake. Actually, if we think about this model, sometimes we think, okay, it has or some artists would define this as having 6 polygons. Some, if you're more advanced on that, you say, yeah, but polygons could be triangles, could be quads, could be n-gons. You want to just count in triangles, and then you would say it's 12 triangles. But actually, the important thing for a game engine and for the data, etc., is not triangles, but actually vertices. So we should ideally use vertices. However, in most circumstances, the amount of triangles and the amount of vertices have the same relationship. So if you have like one model with 10,000 triangles, that will probably have double the amount of vertices as a model with 5,000 triangles, right? So it doesn't really matter, but still vertices are the more correct thing. That's what the game engine works with. That's what the GPU is using as its data to make all the calculations, or the data in the vertices, and then filling up the triangles. The triangles are basically the empty space between the vertices, whether it's big or not. It's more pixels, but it doesn't really matter. So it's vertices. But actually, using vertices is also not totally correct. What we should really be doing is thinking about unique vertices, because this vertex here on the corner, where you might say, okay, it's just one vertex, but it's a point that is that has 3 normals, right? So it has a normal for this face, it has a normal for this face, and it has a normal for this face. So internally, it is actually 3 different vertices at the same position. If that box had the same, so normally, like here, you would say it's 8 vertices, but it's actually 24 unique vertices. But if we all put them on the same, let's create it. If we put everything on the same smoothing group, now it has only 8 unique vertices, because the data, it only needs one data set for this point. But now it looks crappy, right? So the shading sort of goes round and round. So that's not what we want. What we most of the time, what we want is to give this a little edge. And there's a few tricks for that. So what we could do is, let me first also copy it. Wait. What we could do is, is give it, whoop, and so basically give it extra edges. Basically that last one. Give it extra edges, and you could create a script for this to do this. And then if we now put everything on the same smoothing group, of course, it will only smooth between those two edges, right? So you'd have a total of, you'd have more unique vertices, but still, this is pretty easy to do, and that's one option. Oops. Right, then if we turn off, right, so here we do have those sort of soft edges, that so it doesn't look as fake anymore. But there is an even better technique, and that's to basically use just instead of here having like the 3 edges, to just use 2 edges, which we can do if we chamfer. I'll chamfer it a bit more like this, right? So if you just chamfer it like this, of course, it creates extra smoothing groups. If you put everything on the same smoothing group, oops, again, it doesn't really, like, it looks a bit better maybe than this, but it still tries to smooth from this side over to this side. Like it still tries to make this into a rounded side. And what we want is that these flat tops don't have any smoothing, and that the smoothing is only happening at these bevels. And we can actually do this if we manually alter the normals. So let's visualize the normals using the edit normals. Maybe I'll increase the size. No, can't really. Because okay, now it's red. Maybe now it's a bit more visible. So these are the normals, as we expect. It's like sort of pointing. It's like spread out. But if we could have the normals from this face just pointing straight up, and the normals from this face just pointing here and here, so that the interpolation from the normals only happens on this edge, we would have a nice smooth bevel as well. And now, the interpolation also happens from here to here, so it also creates this, so we can do that if we select face. So now I have just the normals of this face, and now if I click on average, wait, where does it say average? Right here, average, select it. So like this. So as you can see now, the normals, they're green because I altered them. Right, so now basically if I turn off the wires, you can see, oops, you can see we also have these soft edges, very similar to this, but we also have like a bit of a rounded corner here, so it's even a little bit better. And in number of unique vertices is actually the same as this one. So for the GPU, both of these have like the same, will be sort of, will take the same amount of calculations. So that's also a technique that could be used, but like if you want more round things, just put a bevel on it with a few edges. That's fine too. But if you want to, you can also incorporate that technique. And I just want to show all these things just to be complete as well. I'm not saying you have to use all of these techniques like the ultimate trim, etc. In level editing, but I want to also give you guys an overview of everything that's possible. Maybe for game projects, or maybe in the future you will see them in your professional career, etc. So that you don't, that you understand what's going on. All right. I'm gonna have a look add, wait, no, I had a few extra tabs, and then, because here, so I found this from Star Citizen as well. Basically, yeah, they're models. So you can definitely just model fine enough. I think that's the first step. Just model some of your details fine enough. Add like just enough. Yeah, just don't be too afraid of adding a bit more polygons. I think that's the first step, and then just slap some trim texture on there if you need to, and then maybe if you want to go further than that, you can start using those floaters, like Dennis says. I'm gonna use it. You can also use like just a few floaters just on like important objects or something. All right, but I'm gonna go through the chat a little bit to see if there are questions. Yeah, those questions don't really need answering. Whatever, answered. Sorry, I'm a bit. I have a bit of a cold, probably from the baby from daycare. All the babies have colds there. I hope it's a cold. No, I'm pretty sure it's a cold. I don't have a fever and I don't have anything on the lungs, but I do have all the normal cold symptoms. Could be COVID, but I'm home anyway, so wouldn't make a difference really. Yeah, okay, so I think most of the things are either are answered in one way or another. Sergey Tyapkin. Let's Google him. So he should have an interesting tutorial. One environment a day. Ooh. Yeah, I think it's probably this one. Decal technique for hard. Yeah. So basically using those decals to add those small details in. Yeah, I'm saying like don't lose yourself into these small details. Still think of the big picture, and probably those small details. Like you're not really looking at them too closely when you see the entire thing. So maybe like reserve it more towards the end, towards a more polished phase, to add like some more small details here and there. But yeah. Glenius, how did you copy those extra lines in Max? I was pressing shortcuts, so Alt R to create a link, and then Control Shift E to do the connect. Yeah, Vardis, in Maya it's fine if you want to use Maya, if you want to use Blender, if you want, like it's about the principle. I don't care about which software you use. Can you separate certain UVs in some islands to have an unreal emissive material? Yes. So Victor, of course, what we can also do is, and you will mix this with everything, is just to have unique textures on different parts of the model. So if you just have like a light source somewhere, then you just give that a different material ID, and you put a different texture on there. Yeah, a tutorial on how to make the UVs. Yeah. So how to make the dirt localize and stuff. Yeah, of course. That's the material. That's the panel material. And Istvan already created the first video of the panel material. It's on Lego a few weeks back. But I will add, of course, because we're running a little bit behind, but I will add some more guides later today that we have from last year. And basically these are, yeah, here I will alter them just a bit, but they're step-by-step guides to make the material. I think Istvan already did the first and maybe the first and the second part in this video. I will have to check, but basically I have more guides on them. And what I will do on Lego is I will create like a panel material hub, section. So instead of splitting it up in weeks, I'll put everything in there as a sort of one package. But basically right now, if you just think about which materials you will use, which layers, and then where you want like details in the normal map, that's the most important thing. And then you can keep sort of adding layers and subtleties, etc. to the shader as we go. But I will put a few guides there, and hopefully I will also make an extra video there. I also have a video online already. I think it's public on my own channel, your channel. Let's have a look here. So first year stuff. Yeah, here. So I made this 2 years ago, as you can see. But basically this is the end point. Mute. This is the end point and goes over the full material. So if you want to like quickly do it, then you can already sort of check out this material, this video, and the guides I will put on Lego later today to sort of create these blendings. But I do plan to make another video or more videos later this week or this weekend. I'm feeling a bit sick. Maybe you hear it on my voice. I already said I had a cold. So if I don't get like way sicker, I will make them and show you how to do this. But it's kind of like you can do this with the trim texture or without the trim texture. It doesn't really affect it, like which texture you use. But for now, you can already start adding some more detail. And then how to do the dirt localized, that's maybe in next week I will show that too. Or actually, I already have a guide. I will put it on as well, but then maybe later on I will make a video for the dirt. On how to use this texturing workflow, Vincent, I will wait, we had this in here. In hide all, I'll show you how to unwrap like a prop like this. No, Istvan says I will be making the videos for all the other parts this weekend. All right, that's awesome, Istvan. But I will still also put the guides online. So maybe you work better if you just read the document, or maybe you're better off watching Istvan's perfect videos. So it will all come together. But basically now is the time, well, hopefully, to start upgrading or meshes. Let me have a sip. Oh yeah, actually, Jonas, Dridder, good question. So if you still have BSP surfaces, that's fine too. We can use the same material on the BSP surfaces, and BSPs can be unwrapped as well. So they can be, it's kind of like different unwrapping. It feels like you're not moving the island, but that you're moving the texture and scaling and rotating the texture. But it's quite easy, actually. Just like, yeah, you set the scale of the material that you put on there. And of course you wouldn't put the trim texture on there, but you would use the same material, but with either without a normal map, so it's just smooth, or with a big normal map with just some panels or something, that tile, but don't make it too busy. That's the most important thing. And then you can scale it and etc. As you like, so that it all fits together, so that the BSPs and the meshes all blend seamlessly together because they have the same materials and the same sort of scale on the paint, etc. All right, so now is the time to start upgrading some of our props and start giving them more detail, start giving them more chamfers, more round edges, etc. So the good thing is, of course, this goes slower than the placeholder materials, but the good thing with the placeholder materials in place, you have a very good overview of what objects are important, what the parts are of the objects that you see, and sort of like what influences the objects, what influences them, what influences the sort of environment, the view that the player has the most. So where your efforts will make the most sense. If you just go into this blind, then you don't really know which props will become important, etc., and which props might, maybe just if you leave them as the placeholder meshes, or just slam some textures on them so that they kind of look in place, and maybe that's just fine because it's very hard to see. But let's say you used to have some sort of barrel. Maybe you have to put this barrel into a machine or something, or it has like sci-fi fuel inside. Wait, Dennis says, in the weekly schedule, it's said that we add spline meshes. However, I noticed since I go for really clean sci-fi in my first room, those pipes don't really fit. Of course, the spline mesh is just an extra tool that you can use, Dennis. But even in clean rooms, you can use the spline technique to make like trims, etc. as well. Katarina asks, can your low poly models have tris and quads? Yes, they can have tris and quads. They can even, and I'm gonna shock the world now, they can even have n-gons, as long as those n-gons are not are not connected to something else, so they have a smooth surface. So this n-gon here at the top of a cylinder, what can go wrong with this n-gon, right? Like, so the engine will cut it up into tris, but what can go wrong? As long as, like, any cut combination that the engine can do, it's all fine. So it's I mean, if you cut them up yourself into the straight lines, you can save one triangle, and there's like a super tiny optimization if you do it that way, because you have less sort of those thin triangles. The problem with that is that the line between the triangles will more often go through more pixels. So if you have a pixel which has multiple triangles on that same pixel, that pixel will have to be recalculated for all those triangles. But that's a really super tiny minor optimization you can do. But basically, if you do this boof, or the engine does it for you, it doesn't matter. Like, it's all fine. So yes, quads, n-gons, it's all fine. Just realize what's going on, right? So those concave quads can give you as much problem as some n-gons will give you. So no, don't tell the first years. They will think everything's a lie. No, but just realize what's going on, and yeah. All right, so let's say, yeah, this object, let me, yeah, so I have this material here, which I put, whoops, no, yeah, in the diffuse here, whoops, it's still one from my Dropbox. But basically here I have the ambient occlusion from that trim texture, and that trim texture was 1 by 2, remember? So that creates a bit of a problem. So if you unwrap, yeah, if you just unwrap this, wait, it's already done. All right, let's copy it, and let's remove those unwraps. Right, so if you, right, just the way I modeled this, by the way, is a late shape. So using the late modifier. So it's, yeah, just one line and then poof, late, and it's done. Yeah, okay, it's already unwrapped, but basically I can remove it. But yeah, like how can you sort of put those strips onto that texture? Because, yeah, like the texture is 1 by 2, and here I see 1 by 1. Well, the trick here to do it in Max, I'm not sure how to do it in Maya, but I'm sure one of my colleagues will be able to tell you, or one of the other students who are more skilled in Maya. I'm just starting out. I'm just starting to make the switch to Maya. But in Max, the thing is, if you apply this material to the model first, and you see, yeah, it already makes sense, but still. And then you apply the unwrap modifier on the model after it has this texture applied. And you open it. Then you can here select this texture. And if you select the texture here, as you can see, the 0 to 1 unwrap space is now sort of formed the same way as the texture. So in this 2 by 1 space, yeah, it works like this now. So most of the areas here, let's say these inner areas, I just put here. So it's basically just cutting up your model into strips, into, yeah, just selecting those parts, cutting them up. And because it was a late model, I already unwrapped it. Wait, so if you create a model using, let's see. So, yeah, let's, if you, I don't know what I'm making. Apologies. Okay, so let's say we have this spline. Let's right. Let's add the late modifier on it. Let's set the axis to the center. Right here. So if we generate the mapping coordinates already, and I think this one as well, and we then, oops, it just, okay, no. And we then convert to an edit poly and put an unwrap on it. Then, yeah, see, so then it's already in these strips. So yeah, let's say, yeah, this was the model that I had to do. So we apply this onto it, and then, yeah, for some reason you need to apply the unwrap modifier onto it after you put the texture on there. So like this, all right, and then you can select it here, and basically now, yeah, you I would just rotate this 90 degrees, and then you can start just, well, yeah, scale it down. Oops, wrong. Yeah, sorry, no, it's control here. Scale it down. It sort of makes a bit more sense already. Yeah. And also, yeah, remember this, yeah, this texture continues, so it tiles, so yeah, here like this, right? So it tiles, and then you start just splitting it up. So you select, I don't know, yeah, that one, I guess, yeah, it makes more sense if that's just a circle. So boom. And then let's say you don't want any details onto this, then you can just put it here, right? So it now has no detail, right? If you put it here, maybe that looks a bit odd. Yeah, and I think there's still like an issue probably in the center here with the point not being connected. But yeah, you get the idea. And then you have this line, break. Oops. No. This, and you just put one edge correctly, and then the other one, like this. It seems like a little bit stretched. So let's. Oh yeah, of course it does stretch it since it's all straight, but now we can. Yeah, we can just eyeball it here. You can match it like this, poof. Right, so yeah, and that's, yeah, just keep going with your stuff. That top thing here, that's kind of the cool spot already. See, something like this. Probably need to make it smaller too. Oof. Yeah, and just slap detail on there. Just think about yeah, just basic ideas. So if we have this yeah, as an unwrap, it means that our unwrap, of course, will be squashed. So that means if you add layers to it, and I'm not sure if Istvan will get that far in his videos, if he makes them this weekend, or will. So if you apply layers to it, they will also be stretched all the time. But there's a quick solution for it, and that is to use the light map unwrap for the tiling panels. That means you can cut up as much as you want here, and you can have as much seams as you want here in this unwrap, and have as much stretching as you want, and it won't affect the sort of grungy, or subtle grungy textures that you use in your metal and your paint and your dirt and your rust and whatever you want to do. Okay, let's end this isolate. Yeah, so basically this thing, what I did was, unwrap all the pieces. Not always, see, there's some stretching here, but whatever, you won't see that one bolt in the entire environment. There's other things that have way more importance. But I also gave this model different material IDs, right? So I sort of gave this as maybe that's a rubber part, and then these are gray parts or metal parts, and this is painted or something. So that's the way you can do it as well, to have like different materials onto your onto your model, simply with material IDs. You can of course also define it using a map in that goes along with your trim texture. So let's say this roster could always be metal and never be painted, but always metal, and then you can have that in your map, a bit like we see here back in the here you can see he had like metal parts as well, or Tofik didn't really have that, but and he just had the colors, like that wasn't as obvious. But here, for example, they have also here other here in the blue channel, for example, they define these other things. They have different colors, etc. All right. So what do we expect from you this week? Next week, coming weeks, with you can add an S to it, is that you start upgrading your meshes. The ones that need it the most, do those first. So the meshes that are, that look the most low quality in your viewport, sort of start upgrading those the most, and use more edges, use more bevels, etc., to just give them more shape. And I want to reiterate, look at your concept. Hopefully you have good, well, not your concept, your reference. Hopefully you have good reference where you can see like, okay, this needs to go. You don't need to go as detailed as, let's say, Alex Seneschal, his stuff. And you don't need, like, I wouldn't maybe start doing those floaters right away. You can still do them later if they come. But I would first do like do the big shapes and start applying the trim texture for that. But I understand you first might want to start on your material as well. So have a look at that. First, do maybe follow the tutorial a little bit from Istvan and or from the guides, and then from the guide, like first follow the tutorial, and then you can tweak the tutorial to fit your own needs and your own material. So you don't have to do exactly as the tutorial does. If you find another tutorial or something, that's fine too. But I do want you to combine different layers together onto in the material. That's a requisite. That's something that's graded. Like, did you mix multiple layers? How did you mix them? Do you have control over them, etc.? So start building that. It will probably not be finished by next week. That's fine, but by the end of the milestone 2, they should be relatively okay. But things like maybe those floaters, etc., if you want to add them, maybe think about them doing after milestone 2. Or sort of more in the polish phase of the project, and do the important steps first. So start adding more detail to your meshes, start creating a material that makes sense in your level. So some people still, like if they're way behind on the material, still have the checkerboard. Some already have the material that Istvan, from following Istvan's tutorial, his first part, that just applied everywhere. But you should like advance from that now, and start to localize a bit and start to think about your own, adding your own textures as well, like your own paint texture, your own metal texture, your own sort of grunge, etc. Well, if you have grunge. And you can get those textures from wherever you want. Jared, tell them you're at school. It's almost done. So also for your source textures, I just got them from textures.com, the old ones. but the new ones with Substance, etc., like you can basically get them from wherever you want. But I do want to see your own logic in Unreal Material. That's a requirement for all the other things, where you sort of get them from and how you combine them, etc., and the look that you go from. You can do that sort of as you see fit. Okay, let's see if we have more interesting questions. I do think so, because I wasn't watching the chat. Yeah, I don't know what I'm making. I literally have no inspiration for modeling. I don't know where to start and how complex to go. Catalonia, please look at reference. Jens has an awesome bunch of reference, and if even that doesn't work, then I would suggest to just go with one of the standard cliche things that we suggest as reference, like just a game like Mass Effect or like Halo, and just say, okay, I'm gonna do that look, and don't worry too much about it. Of course, if you have more inspiration, you don't have to follow that, but that those are sort of definite safe choices that will give you a good result as well. Okay, Christmas. If you have arch tubes or something like that, is it better to straighten the UVs or keep it relaxed? Well, if it's like those trims and those lines, etc., you want to straighten them. If it's maybe like a rust spot or something, then you can maybe just like relax it or something. But most of the time, just straighten them. How do you make a normal map for this? Well, yeah, I will make a video maybe, or at least give you this guide on how to make your own panels. But basically you create a panel in your software of choice, have enough chamfers, put it together, and then you can and the low poly is basically just a plane on top, and then in Xnormal, it's just copy those settings, hit that generate button, and you will get the maps. So I will put this guide on Lego as well. So if you are from GD and you never did the normal map, that's how you can do it with tools that you should know. Basically, you just model the panel with chamfers. Like, there's no need for like a high poly modeling or something, a specific high poly modeling. Just adding some more chamfers is good enough. Wait, where's the chat? No. Okay, here it is. Sorry. You can import plane in Substance. Yeah, you can use Substance as well, or you can also do it in 2D. There's tools about 2D as well. There's so many tools and so many tutorials about it. You can do anything you like. Sander asks, are we supposed to make our texture in color, or do we make them grayscale and color them in Unreal Material, etc.? The color of your paint, I think it's a very good idea to make those as grayscale. If it's rust, then you could have just the color in the texture, rust or dirt maybe. But in most cases, it makes sense to have grayscale stuff, and then use parameters in the material to change the color. So your entire environment can be done, and then you can just tweak the color as it works best. Very easy, and you can then also have different material instances with different colors, etc. So it's quite a bit easier. Then, and have those 10 custom meshes, I assume. Yes, please have some custom meshes, but I suppose that's ideally that should be done by now. Joran, so I asked for you guys to also make your own meshes and not to only rely on my set. I guess I made them, but the set that you found on Lego, the pieces, also make 10 of your own, spread throughout the. If you have 9, that's okay. You can add like one more later on, but wait. Chat is long. Did you see my comment about reapplying the unwrap? You can refresh the texture list. Yeah, okay, I'll look into it. The base hunter. Thank you. Okay, you're feeling somewhat lost. Okay, so I guess if you're feeling somewhat lost, maybe you just need that one hook. But basically it comes down to upgrading your meshes and following the material tutorials, and then it will bit by bit, maybe not by next week, but by the week after that, it will all start to come together, and it should work out. And if you're still lost somehow, then either later today or tomorrow you have the personal feedback, so maybe you can ask it there, because I'm not exactly sure where you're lost, but I know it's like a lot this week. So there's some unwrap work, but Brian, the thing is, with the unwrapping work, I feel it's a lot more fun, because now it's then it normally it's kind of like the boring bit, but now it's really the final bit, and as soon as it's done, it's really done, and it's also easier, and it goes much quicker this way. It's really just like slapping on those parts, and sort of you want to get it over, because as soon as that's done, you can import into your Unreal, and boof, it's like all detailed and etc. While in the normal workflow, it's like at the start and there's still so much left to do, etc. Are we going to be graded on how well we use the trim sheets technique? Yeah, kinda. I mean, it goes together with how well you use the material for your panels and for your meshes, etc. So it's like that's a graded point, or that's a graded category. When I work in my Unreal project, my PC melts and sometimes shuts down because of the heat. Oh, that doesn't sound good, Robin. Actually, a cooling pad. I didn't know students still needed that. Unreal, like, it used to be a really heavy program compared to all the rest, but now this, like, it's a average program, but one of those laptop cool pads, because it might also be a bit of a problem with your laptop. So one of those sort of things. Some of them are quite cheap. I used to have a really cheap one, and it worked actually quite well. It just blows lots more air onto your laptop. Like you definitely don't want to put your laptop onto your actual lap or into like the couch or something. Like you want to have good airflow in your laptop as well. It fries your computer. Yeah, like you can set your viewport at different levels. Okay, now I have some more comments going up. I'm lost in the sense how I make my models the best way. I'm a bit behind on the filling my room, but I try to make the models after the thing I've seen on the stream. All right, but basically, Vardis, you want to first just create very simple, placeholder models, just very simple part of your model, version of your model that you can apply in your level, and then as you see which ones are most visible and which ones are used the most, etc., you can create more time on those. Yeah, get a good desktop is not an answer. I have a desktop from a few years old from 800 euros. And I think it's way better than any laptop I've ever had. And it's basically a budget desktop. I mean, I did put it together, but yeah, I made sure I had good airflow, and yeah, it works super stable for any development work. Okay, I get too much too much stuff in the chat now to keep up. Brian said he forgot about the one room part and I've done a part of the level. All right, yeah, that's okay. If you already do more than just that one part, it's already more is done, so that's fine too. Yeah, no, my desktop, yeah, it has a 9 GTX 960 card. So not the best for gaming, but for any I mean, I can still play a lot of the games, but maybe the newest games I don't have to shouldn't use the big settings, but it's just generally very stable in Unreal, in Mux, etc. It's no problem. But it's also, yeah, it's an older, like the 10XX versions weren't out back then. Okay, Vardis, it seems like you need some personal feedback later on in class. Maybe that's best. All right, I'm gonna wrap up the stream. Does it run Crysis? No, well, basically the game I play is Age of Empires, so if I ever play a game, it's probably Age of Empires. So that's it. But yeah. But still, even if, yeah, I think as a DAER, yeah, it might not be a bad idea to have a desktop. I don't know. It's like you can upgrade as you go, or. All right. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry about reading the chat and maybe not the most structured thing, but have a good look at your reference again. Gather your thoughts, have a look at your environment, and we'll get those shader tutorials to you. Both the guides and the videos from Istvan will be available later on in the week. So see you guys later on in class, and have fun. Hopefully taking that one room to the next level. And don't worry if it sometimes goes a bit slower. That's okay. it's all like layer by layer, and sometimes it looks the same, and then suddenly it starts getting together. That's the nature of this sort of workflow. All right, hopefully you found it interesting, and I'll see you next week